What is up, my friends? Today we're gonna go down a rabbit hole regarding one of my favorite new line of rods and one of the most misunderstood line of rods in the shop. And this is the lineup from Raid Japan. This is the Gladiator Anti line of rods. We're gonna answer questions that I'm getting like crazy. We're gonna talk about what these rods are, what they're good for, what's the warranty, why are you picking them up, so on and so forth. So if you would like to learn about a relatively new lineup of rods that I think you guys would really love, let's have some fun. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle.
Oh, what a stud.
Yeah. Look at that.
That was sick.
Cheers, my friends. Happy Sunday. All right, guys, some breaking news. What's new this week at the Hookup Tackle?
What a beautiful coastal fish.
Look at that.
Look at that gut on that. That's a nice fish.
Welcome back, guys. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, a Tackle Otaku on Instagram, being joined by my buddy Jeffrey the King. Jeff, top of the morning to you, sir.
Top-ist of the mornings to you.
We talk about a lot of rods in the store. It's my favorite thing to talk about. My favorite topic.
Yes, you do.
I think it's my favorite because rods become kind of probably the most personal piece to an angler.
Okay.
Right? I mean, you know, lures can become personal. You can have a favorite, but you know, you tie a bunch of different things on each rod.
Yes.
So when you kind of find your lane or your home or that rod that kind of just
There's
works with you,
right?
there's a connection.
Yes.
Don't you feel that way?
Yeah. There's a couple of rods that I have where it's like there's a connection that I have with this rod.
Yes.
And we're in sync with each other.
Yes.
I know how to cast it. I know how to load it. Like
that.
It's undescribable.
Yes. And when we talk about rods or reels or you know, any of this stuff, I like to think of it in terms of as being a system, right? Every piece kind of works together. The rod has to work with the reel, has to work with the line, and then it has to work with the angler. So how you're holding it, where you hold it, you know, how hard you cast, how soft you cast, what you're casting, all of these things come into play, right? And a lot of times it can be really difficult to know any of these answers until you actually use them, right? So, you know, a lot of times you can come into the store and even pick up a rod and you're like, oh, this one's lighter, it must be better. Or, you know, you bend them in, it's like, oh, I like how that one bends. But until you're actually casting it and fishing it and putting fish on it and fighting fish, a lot of times you don't really understand the lineup as well until you start getting that history, and then you find those ones that are special, right? So, you know, Raid is a relatively new not really a new brand to the US, but their rod line is relatively new to the US. We've carried them for about a year now, and a lot of you guys have started to go down the rabbit hole, but it's still one of those lines that I think is really kind of misunderstood, and there's some things that are evolving with the line that we're going to cover today, okay? So, let's start out by, I'm just gonna pretend that you guys have no idea what Raid Gladiator anti-rods are. So let's start from the beginning. So for those of you that are new to this line, this is roughly a $400 rod line, okay? So it's going to be in what we would consider kind of that mid price range, mid to upper price range, right? My first experience with really being impressed with Raid as a brand actually goes back to 2017, 2018. I was at a show and we had a big booth, and I'm walking through the booth and I'm like, oh yeah, they have some kind of cool lures. Like, they didn't have as many lures as they have now, right? It's like, that's kind of interesting. And then in the corner of my eye, I see all these rods. I'm like, I'm gonna go see what these dumb rods are about. And then I started picking them up, and it's like, what in the world? These things feel amazing. They look amazing. I need to fish them. And so that was kind of like the first spark in my head years ago that triggered me to be interested in the brand. Now, Over the last year, I've added a lot of these rods into my arsenal. They do have 2 rod lines. This is the Anti line, and then they have the Maxim line. Okay, and we'll talk about that in another episode. That's a higher priced point line, but they're different actions. They do different things. So the reason I'm talking about this line is because this is the line that I find myself gravitating to because it's so interesting, right? The name Anti was actually used as kind of a diss in a certain extent to the industry at the time that they were creating these rods. So if you guys are familiar with Raid Japan, the brand was really founded, the foundation of the brand is as a shore fishing brand. Okay, a lot of companies are started as a tournament fishing brand, and this is not the case with Raid. Okay, Raid was started as a shore fishing brand by some really avid, dedicated, great anglers that thought there was a hole in the market, that baits were designed for guys to fish from boats, not designed for guys that were actually fishing from shore and needed different actions, different movements, different success rates. And then it is evolved now into kind of an all-encompassing brand. Okay, there's baits in there that just destroy trout. There's baits in there that tons of tournament guys are using now. So when they developed this lineup of rods, at the time, the rods that were super popular were like Steez, Destroyer, right? These high-end rods that were just trying to go lighter, 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 tournament. And they're like, wait a minute, us shore guys, we want light and dope too, but we need to be able to bang it around some rocks and some trees and maybe flip a fish over a bush or, you know, drag something up over a bridge. Like, we can't just be in a boat netting them all the time. Like, we need some durability. We need the rod to be super versatile. Like, I can't carry 32 rods with me to do 1 rod for every technique. I need a rod to be able to throw a jerkbait and a worm, right? So that's where the idea behind this lineup came. And so the Anti was kind of like the anti-establishment. Like, we're gonna break the rules. You guys go for that, you know, super light 1 rod for every technique, and we're gonna build just super dope rods that can do a bunch of different stuff so that we can take 1 or 2 rods with us and conquer the day, right? Now, one thing that is, I would say, misunderstood in these rods is if you look at any of the marketing material in the Raid Gladiator lineup, a lot of them will refer to them as being a low modulus, high strength rod. Okay, now if you rewind back to like 10 years ago, there was this big kind of fight in low modulus going to high modulus, and brands were saying, oh, it's high modulus, so it's better, right? And at the time, it was all about weight, right? So by going from a low modulus to a little bit higher modulus, you could reduce the weight and, in theory, the sensitivity. And then it kept going down this path. But as you take out the weight, a lot of times, you know, what you're getting is, you know, the carbon and the graphite is it's next to nothing in weight, right? I mean, whether it's low modulus, high modulus, anymore, I mean, we're in 2024, it doesn't weigh anything. So what you end up with weight is the components you put on and then all the added things that go into that carbon. So whether it's tape, whether it's reinforcement, whether it's different fillers, epoxies, whatever, that's what's changing the weight or the bend or the balance of things, how it's scrimmed. All these things are coming into play, right? So essentially these rods, what you guys need to know is that they are designed for performance and durability, which is an important thing when you're banging stuff around. I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, and we'll talk about this rod later, I literally fish a particular Raid rod every day. And it's in my car, out of my car, dragging it around a pond, banging it into trees, scraping it on concrete. Never had a problem, right? That's what I want that rod to do. I don't want to take a rod that's super delicate out there, right? I want to just be able to bang that rod around all the time, right? Okay, so with that said, a couple other things you need to know. Warranty is always a question when we're talking about JDM rods. Most JDM rods and Japanese brands, when they bring rods over, there's no warranty, right? And if there is a warranty, a lot of times it's just a 1-year warranty, and it's kind of a crappy warranty. Like, you bought the rod for $500, it broke, give me $400. I'll give you a new one. Like, it's not that great. So this was the case with Raid also, but we have been working with them for the past year to make sure that you guys are getting the confidence that you need by buying these. So starting in January, they changed their warranty to basically match the Megabass warranty. So you're going to get a 3-year warranty. If the rod breaks for any reason for the first year, they're going to replace it for free for you. Okay. If it breaks in year 2 or 3, you're going to be able to replace it at a 40% discount. So you're going to it's basically going to match the Megabass warranty. So peace of mind is there that you can use it. And this is especially important for their Maximum series that has a lot of stinger tips and more delicate rods. I don't think you're really going to have a problem in the Gladiator Anti, but that's a nice peace of mind to have, right? As far as weight goes, these rods are super light. I know when you guys pick them up, you're gonna be like, oh man, rod doesn't weigh anything. They're styled very simply, but classy. They all have basically the same look. They have a lockdown reel seat that's a combination of carbon fiber and aluminum. They have a custom built actual seat. They have a split grip EVA foam or full grip, depending on what it is. Most of them will have some nice styling at the end, another metal piece that has the model. Some have cork, some have EVA foam. If the rod is longer than 7 foot, it will be ferruled at the grip. Okay, if it's shorter than 7 foot, it will be a solid piece. Okay, a lot of people call these 2-piece rods. This is not a 2-piece rod. This is a 1-piece rod that's ferruled at the grip. We got to start thinking about this in correct terms. A 2-piece rod would be if this was attached and there was a ferrule in the middle of the rod and you pulled it apart and you have 2 3-foot sections, right? This is very common tech that has been in this industry for 9 gazillion years. Every Japanese-made long rod is going to have a ferrule like this, okay? So once it's attached correctly, it's never coming apart. You'll never even know that it is a 2-piece rod. Now, if you're new to ferrule systems, you're going to attach it by going in at a 45-degree angle, right? So you're gonna stick it in. You want those guides to be slightly off center, and then once it's in, you're going to twist it straight. And that twisting is what bonds those 2 pieces, and it's never coming off, okay? Now, there should be a slight gap in there, about 1/2 inch between the gloss and the edge of the handle. That is normal, okay? That is to allow, if you are traveling, the purpose for that, by the way, is so that if you're traveling, if you're jumping on a train, if you're putting in your car, whatever, you don't have to store the 7-foot rod or a 7.5-foot rod. You only have to store a 6-foot rod because you've taken this piece off, right? So if you're taking it off, putting it on, taking it off, putting it on, by having that little bit of a gap, it will allow that rod to have a little bit of play with it, never affecting the ability to stay together. But for most anglers, we're gonna put it together and it's never gonna come off. I never take mine off, right? How many ferruled rods do you have, Jeff?
Quite a few, actually.
Same.
Quite a lot.
Do you ever take the handles back off the grip?
No, only when I'm traveling.
Okay. Has it ever created a problem for you?
Not a single time, ever.
Ever?
Ever.
As long as you put it on correctly,
yes.
You don't even, does it ever cross your mind like, man, if this rod was only not ferruled, it would be so much better?
No. Obviously not.
Right. So these are things that still are concepts that I'm answering every day and that scare people away. And I don't know why it scares people away, other than I just don't think they're used to it. They've just never experienced it before. But if you're watching this, you trust me to a certain extent, you're just gonna have to trust me that it's just not, it's not anything.
Well, I guess the idea is that you're gonna go for a cast one of these times and your whole rod just
and it's gonna fly off.
Yeah.
So
which would be hilarious to see.
It would be
I've
funny.
never seen it on a ferrule rod.
So the only time, I used to guide fly fishing, right? So those were all 4-piece rods. And you'd watch guys put them together. A lot of times there's like dots, 2 dots, like a dot to this piece and a dot to this piece. And you'd watch these guys just like stick dot to dot.
Yeah.
And there's no connection. All you did was just slide 2 pieces together. So then they'd start casting and the 1 piece would eventually work itself off and they'd throw half the rod in the water, right? That's why I'm telling you, when you connect it, you stick it in slightly off center, twist it to center,
boom,
done. I mean, there's no way that blank is coming off of that grip. Never a problem, okay? So I know I probably spent more time than I should have on that. I just want you guys to know that that's kind of an important topic. Anytime you're dealing with rods with ferrules, you have to just forget about it. It's not a thing. All right, let's go through the lineup and make sure I can break it down. All right, so I'm gonna start with like lighter and work my way up. So in total, there is 2, 4, 6, there's 8 bait casting rods. So we're gonna talk about casting rods today. We'll do a separate rod on the spinning rods because I wanna give each of them, we'll do a separate rod on the spinning rods. We'll do a separate video on the spinning rods. Where were you, Jeff?
I was gonna let you fly.
Okay. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Let's just talk about rods. All right. There are 2 bait finesse rods in the line. So we're gonna start with the lighter ones and we're gonna work our way up, okay? Here's the bait finesse styling. So slightly different styling on the lockdown. You'll notice that it has kind of this real soft EVA line in there. That's because they know that a lot of anglers are going to be having their finger on that, so they want that comfort piece. There's 2 different models. So you have here in my hands is the power bait finesse, and then this is the bait finesse tricker. Okay, so the bait finesse tricker is a 6'2". It would be technically a light, and it's going to be an 1/8 to 1/4 ounce. The power bait finesse is a 6'5", technically a medium light, and it does have a solid carbon tip, so a stinger tip, okay, that we were just talking about. Lure rating 3/16 to 3/8 ounce. Now, Raid makes both hard baits and soft baits, but they are predominantly a hard bait brand. Their soft baits are predominantly built for shallow water. Okay, so there are not many baits in their lineup that are designed to be sent down into 60 feet and you're looking for maximum sensitivity. You need sensitivity to know when you get bit, obviously, but they're designed to deliver like shallow water, closer range sensitivity on soft, but deliver a ton of torque and power on hard baits. So these are both, you should think about both of these as being bait finesse hard bait rods, but that stinger tip is going to give you a little added sensitivity at the top. Okay, so if you're looking for a rod that can throw both like a hard bait, see how durable it was? A hard bait and a finesse soft plastic, then maybe the power bait finesse would be a better option because it's going to give you that carbon tip for when you're using a little micro jig, a small little like 2-way or something like that. So that carbon tip is basically going to be that last kind of 12 inches, and it's just a solid carbon tube that's just going to bend. But the rod itself, you can see, is pretty parabolic. So both the bait finesse rods are parabolic, just depending on what it is that you're looking to do with them. All right, the next rod in the line, I'm kind of skipping around here, but intentionally. This is the Gladiator. This is the rod known as the Frogman. Okay, now this is our best-selling rod in the line so far. Okay, and it makes sense. So this is a rod, it's a 6'7", medium heavy, but it's a special, they call it a torqueful model. Okay, so when you see it'll say GA-67 MHTC, it's the torque casting. Okay, so what that means is they've created a 6'7" medium heavy rod designed for maximum torque. Okay, so this rod weighs nothing, it's short, it's pretty soft, right? But it's all power. So it's designed as a frog rod for lighter frogs, close range, skipping, accurate casting. If you guys are struggling walking a frog, or you're fishing from shore, or you're short and you just don't want a long 7.2 or 7.4 rod, you just want something a little shorter to be able to manipulate, cast in there well, get it to actually walk with ease instead of just like this bobbing, porpoising thing. You actually want that frog to be cutting. This would be a great rod to do it. Now, most of the time when you have a 6'7" medium heavy rod, it's going to be rated to like 1/2 ounce or 5/8 ounce. This guy is rated 1/4 to 1.5 ounce. Okay, so it is an incredibly versatile rod. If you follow any of the Raid guys, by the way, it's a full EVA grip. So gone is the split grip. It does have the cork on the backside. This is a great rod for obviously a frog. Okay, but you can throw a swim bait with it. You could throw a mag draft with this. You could throw a spinnerbait. It's a great spinnerbait rod. You could pitch soft plastics with it because it's got a soft enough tip to where it's going to cast something that's 3/8 or 1/2 ounce very, very accurately. So if you just need a short kind of do everything rod, this would be a sick one. You could wacky rig a Senko. You could throw a spinnerbait. You could throw your frog. You could throw a swim bait. So much you can do with it. Okay, so killer rod in the fact that it's shorter, will be the selling point for a lot of guys. Okay, that's the Frogman. All right, now we're going up in length. I'm going to talk about these two rods simultaneously. Okay, so we have two 610 rods. We have a 610 medium casting known as the Joker. We have a 610 medium heavy casting known as the Baltoro. These two rods were actually built to kind of go together to be the 1-2 punch to do as many different things as possible. Okay, if you look at these rods, they have the exact same measurements. The reel seats in the exact same place, the lockdowns, the guides, everything is exactly the same. So even if I go up and you guys see the guide train, they're in exactly the same place, right? They are both built with the same taper. So it is what I would consider to be like a mid-parabolic taper. So similar, if you guys are familiar with the Megabass lineup, basically like a jerkbait special. Same type of taper, to where it's still gonna bend through the middle, but it's still relatively fast. So what it does, that was the Joker, there's the Baltoro. Same exact taper. So the difference is the Baltoro is just giving you a little bit more power, the Joker's giving you a little bit less power. They're designed to be all around use rods. So jerkbait, small crankbait, lipless, soft plastic, small little swim bait, little topwater, all those types of things, these two rods can interchange. So again, if you follow the raid guys, a lot of times they're throwing like the level minnow, one of our favorite baits to throw. A lot of times you'll see them throw it on the Joker, which is the medium. If I was gonna throw like 10 pound, I'd probably throw it on the Joker. But you could also bump it up to 12 or 14 pound and you could throw it on the Baltoro, just as easy, okay? The Orochi Jerkbait Special is closer to the Baltoro than the Joker. Okay, so if you're trying to compare what you guys are used to seeing on the market, the Baltoro is almost identical to an Orochi Jerkbait Special. The Joker would be like maybe a half a power under. Okay, so that'll give you an idea of where they sit. But they're both super light, they're comfortable, and they'll be sensitive enough to where if you need to throw a little fluke, you need to throw a little soft plastic, you can do it as well. Okay, so there you go. There is the Joker and Baltoro in the line. All right, next in the line, we jump to the 7.2 heavy. This is the King Heavy, and this is one that I get a lot of questions on. 3/8 to 1.5 ounce lure rating. This is designed as basically a heavy junk fishing rod, okay? So you can throw a mag draft. In the raid world, you can throw an Osakana swimmer, right? You can throw a smaller sized crawler. You can throw a bigger crankbait like the Gorilla. You can throw a 1/2 ounce swim jig and a swim bait behind it, okay? It's designed to just be kind of an all-around junk fishing rod. So you'll notice that the tip, it still has some give. It's gonna be probably parabolic through the first third, and then you're down to butt section. Okay, so you're gonna have a little bit of tip to where you can kind of cast and load, but you have a lot of power in the lower section. So if you need to pitch around some bushes, you need to skip something up underneath the dock. It's long enough in the grip, and there is a far enough rear grip to where you could even, you know, make a big long cast in open water with it. It's just a really good all-around use rod. But that 1.5 ounce is kind of the top of this, okay? So something like a 6-inch mag draft or an Osakana like 125, that's kind of going to be your stopping point, okay? It's really designed for that 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce stuff. So your bigger lipless, your bigger square bills, that type of stuff, that is the King Heavy. All right, Jeff, we're on to our last two. This next one is one that has a personal place. This is one of those that I'm connected to, okay? This is the 7.4 Extra Heavy Diffuser. Okay, now the diffuser is a 1/2 ounce to 2.5 ounce rod. Okay, it's 7.4. Styling changes a little bit. You have a bigger grip back here. Okay, so it's actually pretty big, and the trigger lengthens just a touch. Now, this is one of those rods that when I first picked it up and I held it in store, I knew in my head I was gonna hate it. I hate triggers. They drive me insane, right? It's one of the reasons why I've slowly faded out of NRX, because that trigger just drives me insane. Especially, I mean, everybody's rods are going shorter, right? Nubby little triggers so that they're not just like pinching you and in the way all the freaking time. So when I put this rod in my hand initially, I'm like, what the, I'm gonna hate this rod. But the taper feels so good. It's got this like perfect parabolic taper to it. and it's only 7.4, I'm gonna try it. So the first day I went out, I had my Mark 56, which is what I've always used, and then I rigged one of these up, and it's never left my hand since. It's one of those crazy things where I can't even explain it. What you feel when you initially get it, you never feel when you're fishing. So I thought that triggers are gonna drive me insane. I honestly don't ever even know the trigger's there. I think it's just the way the rod positions, it's just sitting in a spot that doesn't bother me at all. And then I thought that big butt was gonna drive me crazy, but I have so much control with this rod. I think the combination of it being short and having a big grip that actually allows me to utilize my left hand for control instead of it just kind of being there. Like a lot of times when it's so small, I just feel like it's there so I don't throw my rod overboard. But this actually lets me kind of utilize my left hand a little bit. So when I'm making these shorter, accurate casts, I can really be in control with this rod. I'm showing you the one that literally drives around in my truck all the time. So if we're throwing things like a crawler, an Osakana slide, a small glide, a bigger square bill, all the things we talked about with the King Heavy, honestly, but it can handle that 2 ounce, 2.5, even 3 ounce weight. I love this rod. Now, it has not replaced my Mark 56. I would say the Mark 56 is still a better open water swim bait rod. It's longer, it can manage a little bit more weight, it can handle a little bit more on the upper end, so you can start creeping into a little bit heavier glides. It weighs nothing. It's a brilliant rod, but for shore fishing applications, for tighter quarters, for when you really need to be accurate, this rod just is in sync with me. I love this rod. Okay, so we zing. I don't know how else to say it. So I have a Steez A on there. I think it's perfect on there. You don't need a full-size swim bait reel with this. So Steez A for me is perfect. You could do, a Tatula. You could do a Zillion. You could do a Bantam. I have a Bantam on one. Just something that's just got some body to it, but without going, I wouldn't go any bigger than a 200 size. But this is just like a straightforward, 100, 150, and it's perfect, okay? So that is the diffuser. All right, and then finally the largest rod in the lineup. This is the 7.5 double extra heavy caster. This is the Undertaker, okay? So this is kind of a really interesting rod, I would say, from Raid, because I feel that the diffuser handles all the baits that they have, right? So this is one of those odd ones that I don't really know what bait they built it for, because I mean the Decadodge is really the only thing in their arsenal that's heavy enough to really throw on this. So it's kind of a confusing rod, right? So take Raid products out. Let's just do that. I think it's the easiest way to think of it. This is a sick rod for like soft plastic swim baits. Now you could throw some glides and stuff on here too, but where I think this rod really shines is on the soft plastic weedless side. Okay, so if you guys are throwing 6-inch Citizen, 7-inch Citizen, Battle Shads, Magdraft Freestyle, something that's weedless, Rising Sun, something like that, this is a sick rod. Okay, so it does have a little bit of a tip, okay, but because it's only 7.5, it gets to the meat of the rod quick. So that little tip will still allow you to make super accurate casts. It loads well on a 2 or 3 ounce bait, even an 1.5 ounce bait. You're gonna get the load. By the way, it's rated just as a max 5 ounce. Okay, so you could even throw like a K9 on this if you wanted to, but where it's gonna shine is utilizing that shorter length and that fast blank with just that little tip. Use it as an accurate weedless soft bait rod. That's where it's gonna really shine. So yeah, we've kind of niched it into a category where we haven't so much niched the other ones, but it's kind of an important category. It's not a category that a lot of brands build for anymore, especially in a short length. A lot of times when you get a 7.5, it's just kind of a broomstick. And this is not that at all. Okay, so you've got that nice soft tip, so you get the skip ability, the cast ability, but you still have all that power to utilize. So I think it's got a lot of game, both from shore and from fishing from a boat, because so often from a boat, dude, you don't want a big 8-foot rod when you're in tight quarters around wood or trees or tules. Like you just don't have room to maneuver. So having that shorter rod to be able to present it right where you want it to go is pretty dope. Okay, so there you go. That is the Undertaker. By the way, the Undertaker, the only one that has kind of like the laser etching on the rear grip. It has Anti on the one side and then Gladiator on the other side. Pretty cool and really neat graphic. So there's that. All right, guys, that is a wrap on the casting models for the Raid Gladiator Anti lineup of rods. You know, once again, just to recap, it's a lineup that I have really enjoyed, and everybody here at the shop has really enjoyed learning. It's one of those that it's going to feel impressive when you get it in hand, but once you put some fish behind it and they actually pull and you see how the rod's torque is designed and for fighting fish and landing fish, you're gonna really enjoy using this lineup of rods. So if you have questions on any of the models or anything that we covered, drop it down below and I will get answers for you. We'll put links to them if you wanna go down any further rabbit holes. Of course, you guys can always reach me here or on Instagram DM or via email if you wanna do that. So guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for your business. Thank you for listening to one of my favorite lines of rods, the Raid Gladiator Anti. I hope you get them in your hands, enjoy them. We'll see you in the water. Peace.